I'm Mary Margaret Carnes from North Pontotoc Middle School. Today we are going to examine the Bourbon era from Mississippi Studies and its standard MS.7, which says that we will examine the economic, political, and social changes in post-Reconstruction in Mississippi. In some ways, the Bourbon era is the most difficult period of Mississippi history to understand. The term Bourbons referred to Mississippi politicians who did not accept the sweeping changes brought about by the Civil War. Some Mississippi Bourbons, who were also known as New Departure Democrats, favored a new South and a new Mississippi. During the 1880s and 1890s, nostalgia for the Old South kept many white Mississippians from letting go of their past to embrace the future. It was also during the Bourbon era that black Mississippians were isolated from the government decision-making that affected their lives. Before Bourbons came to power, they pledged to reduce government expenses and kept this promise when they took control. Many government positions were abolished and salaries of others were reduced. To guarantee its control of state government, the Bourbons drafted a new state constitution in 1890 that eliminated blacks and many poor whites from voting and holding office. The Bourbon era is divided into three parts: economy, education, and politics. The first topic we're going to discuss is the post-war economy. For several years after the Civil War, cotton fields lay in waste. The state also suffered from the destruction of railroads, factories, livestock, bridges, and buildings. Very little progress in state economics occurred during Reconstruction. Under the Bourbons, the state embarked on the long and difficult road to economic recovery. The most controversial cost-cutting scheme proposed by the Bourbons was the convict lease system, in which prisoners were leased as laborers to private citizens or businesses. The citizens or businesses were responsible for the upkeep of the prisoners. This eliminated the expense of maintaining a state penitentiary. Convicts were leased to railroad companies, planters, or manufacturers for $50 a year plus food, housing, and clothing. The convict lease system soon became public scandal because the convicts were abused, overworked, and underfed, ill-clothed, and ill-housed. Governor Vardaman terminated the shameful system when he was elected in 1903.
You got to go and dig those holes with broken hands and withered souls, emancipated from all you know. You got to go and dig those holes. The dirt in these shovels will give us a beat. Okay, you gotta find something never found before. If not, we'll just have to dig some more. Ooh. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. Oh, dig it up, oh, oh, dig it. Dig it up, oh, oh, oh. Dig it up, oh, oh, dig it. Dig it up, oh, oh.
One of the most important industrial developments during this time was the railroad boom. In the 1880s, railroad mileage increased over 110%. Many factories contributed to its growth. First was the large-scale timber operations. Second was the development of vegetable farming. And last was the decline in water transportation. More track was laid in Mississippi than in any other state in 1883. The third topic we are going to look at is industry. A majority of the state's factories were destroyed during the war, and recovery was a slow and costly process. In an effort to promote recovery and attract industry, new factories were given a 10-year tax-exempt status. By 1890, there were 16 cotton and woolen mills in Mississippi. Mississippi Mills, located in Wesson, was the largest mill in the state. The fourth topic is sharecropping. Sharecropping was another attempt at economic recovery. Planters who could not qualify for a loan with a bank often established credit with a local merchant. The merchant would extend credit throughout the growing season with the understanding that the loan would be paid in full when the crop was harvested. With a secure credit, planters seeked laborers. Black men were now able to negotiate the terms of their contract. Some planters offered cash wages, but black men suggested that the land be worked for a share of the crops, hence sharecroppers. Under this arrangement, sharecroppers were supplied with housing, food, clothing, and medicine by a planter during the growing season. After harvest, the cost of the furnishings was deducted from the worker's share of the crop. Whatever remained from his share was paid in cash. The system did not work out as anticipated. The price of cotton began to decline. Planters and sharecroppers accumulated large debts. Planters deeded a portion of land to merchants to repay loans, but sharecroppers had no means to repay their debt. Unfortunately, these debts were carried over year after year. Sharecroppers had lost all hope of becoming debt-free. Merchants required sharecroppers to sign a new agreement in which the merchant profited from cotton produced and purchase of food and supplies. Sharecroppers were required by a new law called the Crop Lien Law to remain on the land until all debt was paid. They were rarely ever able to free themselves from this bondage, and many generations lived out their lives in hopeless poverty. Within 2 or 3 years after Reconstruction, blacks began to leave Mississippi in large numbers. This population shift was referred to as the Black Exodus. Farm workers were lured by swift, fast-talking agents who made false promises. Many of these workers eventually returned. Part 2 is education in Mississippi. Mississippi schools have been underfunded since the 1880s. During the Bourbon era, teachers' salaries and expenditures for both white and black schools declined. On the other hand, colleges and universities received much more support. Mississippi established the nation's first agricultural and mechanical college for blacks and the first state college for women. State Normal School opened in 1870. It was a co-educational teachers' college for blacks and trained nearly 2,000 teachers. Due to underfunding, the school closed in the early 1900s. Alcorn State University, formerly Alcorn A&M, was established in 1871 and was the first to educate young black men in the mechanical and agricultural arts. Jackson State University was originally established in Natchez. in 1877. The college was moved to Jackson in 1882, and it became a state-supported institution in 1940. In 1878, the state chartered Mississippi Agricultural and Mechanical College, Mississippi A&M. This institution has made enormous contributions to the social and economic development of our state. In 1935, Mississippi A&M was changed to Mississippi State College, and in 1958 to Mississippi State University. The state legislature established the Mississippi Industrial Institute and College for White Girls of Mississippi in 1884. The Industrial Institute was later renamed Mississippi State College for Women, and in 1974, Mississippi University for Women. It began admitting male students in 1982 under federal court order. Many private colleges were established in Mississippi soon after the Civil War. Some include Campbell College, Shaw University, Russ College now, Tougaloo College, Blue Mountain, Belhaven, and Millsaps College. Separate but equal. The historic decision of Plessy v. Ferguson segregated public facilities as long as these facilities were equal. Many southern states, including Mississippi, took full advantage of the ruling and passed several laws known as Jim Crow laws. As you can see in the two images on the right, there is a vast difference in the school for colored children versus the school for white children, but in the court's eyes, this was considered equal. Politics is the last section of the Bourbon era. Bourbon politicians maintained political power by creating a one-party system and color line politics, which is excluding blacks from political affairs solely on the basis of their color. The new state constitution of 1890 was also designed to keep power in the hands of the Bourbons. Bourbon politicians, who were strongly supported by Mississippi newspapers, constantly talked about how bad Republican rule had been and how burdensome taxes had been during Reconstruction. They told citizens how corruption and waste had left them with enormous public debt. Newspapers echoed these accusations. The result of this political propaganda was to create fear, dread, and disgust for the Republican Party. For nearly a century, Mississippi maintained a one-party system. The second method Bourbons used to maintain control was color line politics. White Democrats were appointed to major governmental roles, while black Republicans were only appointed minor ones. Until the 1950s, the Mississippi Republican Party remained almost exclusively a black person's party. In 1890, Bourbon secured their control of state legislature by drafting a new state constitution. The new constitution included new voting requirements, a literacy test, and a poll tax, both of which decreased the number of black and poor white farmers. The updated legislative apportionment was also unfairly calculated, causing the state legislature to remain under Bourbon control. Other provisions for the Constitution of 1890 include a 4-month compulsory school term, 4-year term for the governor, and state judges to be appointed by the governor. Fed up with the Bourbons' control, a new political faction was being formed. They called themselves the Rednecks and eventually took control of state government. I hope you have enjoyed my review of the Bourbon era in Mississippi Studies, and and I hope you have learned something new. Have a great day.